Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, February 8th, 2021. I'd like to call this meeting to order, a virtual workshop meeting of the Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach at 9 o'clock a.m. I'd like to start off with the roll call. Commissioner Susan Gay, you're muted.
Here.
Commissioner Richard Byrne.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
Here.
Commissioner Edward Shanowski.
Good morning, here.
Commissioner Pat Caluzzi.
Here.
And I'm Mayor Stan Mills. We have a full complement. We have a quorum. We're able to formally conduct business today. Also with me today are City Manager Sharon Lynn, City Solicitor Glenn Mandalis, and Chief Banks, Kevin Williams, the Public Works Director, Evan Miller, Margaret Carson, and Max Hamby of the IT Department. Welcome to everybody, and welcome to our watchers. I want to thank you for watching, and also thank those that are signed up and registered to participate. Those signed up and registered to participate include Carol Everhart of the Rehoboth Beach Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce, Walter Brenningham, Richard Perry, Todd Fritschman for Envirotech, Stuart Martins, Frank Cooper, and Kathy McGinnis. Thank you all again for your willingness to participate, give us input and feedback. I'd like to remind everybody that if you go to cityofrehoboth.com and go to the legislative portal, you'll be able to access today's meeting, not just live stream, but also recorded for viewing later. But also you'll be able to access our agenda with the available support documents embedded into that agenda. With that, I would like to go to correspondence, and there is none indicated. After that, we'll go to City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. DelDOT is hosting a pre-construction conference on February 10th this week regarding the realigning of the Junction and Breakwater Trail where it connects at Church and Rehoboth Avenue. The realignment will allow the trail to enter the avenue while avoiding the Church Street traffic signal. Director of Public Works Kevin Williams will be attending the meeting and be able to answer questions, and he anticipates that the project should start soon. This fiscal year 2021 water meter replacement project is underway. The contractor has completed the replacement work in Rehoboth Shores neighborhood and has moved into the Fritschman neighborhood. This week, DelDOT has informed the city that its contractor is planning to perform nighttime testing of the drawbridge across Rehoboth Avenue. Testing involves the opening and closing of the bridge. In between the bridge openings, traffic and pedestrians will be able to cross. Tests are planned for tomorrow, Tuesday, February 9th, from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. Wednesday, pending any inclement weather. I'm pleased to announce that Mr. Jeffrey Giles is on board as the city's new beach patrol captain, and he's already hit the ground running and has started to contact last year's lifeguards and requesting that those interested to join the city's beach patrol to reach him on his email at jgiles@cityofrehoboth.com. The city last Friday sent out a letter to all businesses, downtown businesses, explaining the policy for this season and requiring them to make an application for outdoor dining or outdoor retail, which will be the application extended deadline that will be due on March 1st. Due to the financial burden on the city, the commissioners also included this year a cost of the barriers for the city's loss of revenues, parking revenues last year. Restaurants or any retail will be required to rent barriers at a cost of $25 per barrier per month. The barriers will be available to rent on April 1st, after the city's Building and Licensing Department determines the number of barriers required for each business based on sidewalk widths, pedestrian safety, and accessibility.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager?
Yeah, Mayor, I have a quick question for the city manager. What was the cost of the barriers last season, Sharon? Was it less than $25?
Each barrier, I believe, was 20.
I think it was 17, maybe 15 or 17 a month per.
Okay, so we got a little discount because we ordered 1,000 to start with, and then we reduced that down to 300. So it did go up just a bit this year.
Okay. I have kind of a faint memory that Commissioner Chrzanowski helped us get a better price last year through some connections of his, perhaps with the business. If I'm not remembering that correctly, Ed, let me know. But if that's possible again, it would certainly help our businesses.
Yeah, so I think we reached out, and the rental cost again just went up $2 or $3. And I think because of availability and everything else, that they're giving us their best price this year.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. With that, we'll go to the city solicitor's report.
Mayor, I have nothing new to report today.
Nothing new to report today. With that, we'll go to administration of oath of office to Renee Bennett, Alderman. Judge Bennett was first appointed about 2013. She gets renewed, if you will, every 2 years. Every 2 years, the commissioners reaffirm her reappointment, and then it goes up to the state legislature that also confirms her reappointment. And then the next step is oath of office, which I'm pleased to administer today. Judge? In the view of the camera here. There we go. First, I want to say that, Judge, you administered the oath of office to me 5 times over the years, and I'm pleased to reciprocate this year.
Thank you.
If you would, repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Renee L. Bennett,
Do proudly swear
do proudly swear
to carry out the responsibilities
to carry out the responsibilities
of the office of Alderman
of the office of Alderman
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
freely acknowledging
freely acknowledging
that the powers of this office
that the powers of this office
flow from the people
flow from the people
I am privileged to represent.
I am privileged to represent.
I further swear
I further swear
always to place
always to place
the public interest
the public interest
above any special
above any special
or personal interest,
or personal interest,
and to respect
and to respect
the right of future generations
the right of future generations
to share the rich historic
to share the rich historic
and natural heritage of Delaware.
and natural heritage of Delaware.
In doing so, I will always
In doing so, I will always
uphold and defend
uphold and defend
the constitutions of my country and my state.
the constitutions of my country and my state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. With that, the next bit of business is a presentation with annual update on management of Lake Gerard and Silver Lake by Todd Fritschman of Envirotech Environmental Consulting, Inc. Sharon, do you want to introduce him, or do you just get right to it?
Certainly. Mr. Fritschman, through his business, Envirotech Incorporated Environmental Consulting, has been a independent contractor working with the city for many years, as most of you know. And on a annual basis, Todd tries to give us an update, and he has prepared his report, and I'll turn it over to you, Todd.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Todd Fritschman here.
Good morning, Todd. Yes, sir,
Morning.
go ahead. Thank you.
So can everyone see the presentation at this point?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Outstanding. So I'll go ahead and get started for the essence of time. I'm here this morning. My name is Todd Fritschman. I'm a dual degree aquatic biologist, and for more than a decade now, my responsibility has to design and implement the comprehensive Lake Gerard maintenance and management program for the water column, the existing riparian buffer system, water quality management products, fish and wildlife, human impacts, and basically anything regarding the lake that could be recognized as a deficiency. So I'm going to go through this presentation now. Bear with me. I got to figure out how to do this real quick. Okay. Can everyone see the objectives of the morning?
Yes, well, you're fine, thank you.
Very good then. Objective number 1, Lake Gerard Comprehensive Maintenance and Management Plan. This is our first objective. That is a review and an outline form of the management units that we address and work on an annual basis regarding the lake. Number 2, objective number 2, Lake Gerard Riparian Buffer. That is the no-mow zones around the perimeter of the water column that we have employed over the years for many purposes, mainly stabilization of soils, nutrient uptake, filtration of sheet flow, and stormwater runoff into the system, habitat, natural beauty, and just overall best management practices for lake management. I use the word lake just as because that's the common name of the system, but obviously this is not a true lake by ecological definition based on depth. It's a very shallow water column that serves for stormwater management of the certain quadrat of the city of Rehoboth. And historically, of course, the lake was excavated and used as a dump site by the DuPont family many, many years ago. So, whoops, bear with me. Objective number 3, water quality maintenance and management. I'll be talking about that. This was a year where we did experience some setbacks with water quality that we had to work diligently to restore. Some were human-induced, some were ecological as a result, so I'll talk about those. And then I'd like to talk about concerns, general concerns of the lake. Also, objective 5, the Atlantic white cedar bog on the northwest prong of Lake Gerard. And then the uses, the active and passive uses of the lake within the city situation there. And moving along. So if you take a look at the comprehensive maintenance and management program there, educational outreach obviously is first and foremost. We meet with city officials, homeowners, property owners on and around the lake. Anytime that a situation requiring educational outreach is needed regarding any of the products, maintenance principles and processes that we use to manage things, and also to collaborate on concerns, wants, and needs, for instance, buffer heights and widths, which I'll talk about more as we go along here. We did make some changes to accommodate some concerns that some of the homeowners and property owners living on the lake had expressed to the city with diligence. And so we think we've found a happy medium there to appease all property owners around the lake. Mosquito control, that is done essentially biologically in the lake. The lake does possess Gambesia holobrookii, the eastern mosquito fish, in abundance. That is the best biological control known to mankind. So we don't have any mosquito breeding from the ponded waterway itself. Aeration, we do artificially aerate the water column throughout as a best management practice. Probably the best form that we can, although not completely in tune with science on the depth of the water column, but we do that with compressed air diffusion. We have 4 air compressors positioned around the lake. 3 air compressors positioned around the lake that force compressed air through a diffuser membrane that sits on the benthos on the bottom of the lake and forces the compressed air into the system. We manage and maintain that system, including change out of deficient parts, motor repair, carbon vane kit change outs, and clogging if and when that occurs. The riparian buffers, the no-mow zones, they are managed with what's called integrated vegetation management practices. That essentially means the most sound environmental process that provides the least environmental degradation. So some of this is physical, some is with EPA registered, aquatic approved herbicides, algicides, or bactericides, depending on needs, if and when the environment expresses a need for a certain target species to be removed, for bacteria, cyanobacteria blooms that may occur. The buffers are pruned 2 times annually. In terms of a large pruning, that was in the middle of July when the cool season vegetation goes dormant, the grasses, and in the warm season starts to grow behind it. So then we do a pruning then. And then, of course, in dormancy, which occurs anywhere between the end of November through December, buffers get taken back down as a best management practices for the springs, a new emergent growth to express itself and come up. Aquatic vegetation control, that is submerged rooted aquatic pond weeds, floating vegetation like duckmeal, and also emergent growth vegetation like phragmites or broadleaf cattail, multiflora rose, types of things that can grow in and around. Viney material is always a problem. Then we report any structural and functional deficiencies or degrading factors that we witness or observe throughout the system, and then provide recommendations for corrective actions to any deficiencies recognized. Water quality management, of course, fish and wildlife management. To date, this season, we have not had to do any trapping of any kind, but on the fish and wildlife part, when we get to concerns, I will talk about the goose population, which has pretty much quadrupled itself within the last 3 migratory and resident goose seasons, the last 3 years, essentially. So we do have a growing goose population that is a native nuisance population, and we'll determine the extent of that more in March, about March 1 or after, when the migratory birds leave, and so that we can determine exactly what our resident population really is. This is just a cross-section profiling the typical shoreline of the bank and how we've set up the emergent growth zones, the buffer, and then up into the upland sections. Objective number 2 was to talk about the buffer itself. That's the no-mow zone. Obviously, buffers become one of the most controversial parts of water quality management due to human psychology reasons, really. Some percentage of people like the golf course management look with the flush cut down to 3 inches all the way to an edge of a waterway, whether it be man-made or natural. And in this case, this system being more wetland status than anything, that's not a best management practice. So we have designed and employed these buffers that we've created through grant funding and so forth over the course of the last decade and more. So again, that is managed with integrated vegetation management. One thing that we have done to the buffer is reduced the size of the buffer. These measurements were taken, I believe, 2 years ago, where the buffers had become much wider than the original proposed width of the buffers, from 10 feet to 20 feet, 21, 24 in some places. And that is due to really best management practice. But nonetheless, they did get larger, especially when the Department of Agriculture came in with the tree grant and put the trees around the large woody stem canopy tree species around the lake. The buffers were increased to the same width as the tree growth. However, there was a concern by property owners on that southwest prong regarding the width, and they wanted them shortened some. So, and we worked with Liz Lingo and her team and the city turf managers, and we reduced those basically to 17 feet. So we kind of have a standard 17-foot buffer cut now that the turf managers cut to a cut line, and we manage from that cut line in to the lake. So that has been successful, and I think we've kind of made a happy median there to meet everyone's needs on the buffer width and heights. These are just some images that show the before, the distance of the buffer before, and then on the right shows the existing buffer that is somewhat smaller. These will be just time frames. We still have a lot of the wildflower plantings that express themselves systematically and seasonal variations throughout the growing season, both cool and warm season. We propagate the good and select against the bad. So again, integrated vegetation management practices are what are employed for the lake buffer. Again, different looks, different times of the year. This is obviously what the buffer looks like now in dormancy and in the winter months, all pruned back. As opposed to what it looks like during the growing season. Objective number 3, water quality maintenance. I had mentioned that we do indeed manage the air diffuser systems and replace deficient parts and keep them operating and functional throughout the course of the year. I do want to talk about water quality. At this point, one of the major events that we had this season was a Sago pondweed bloom. Sago pondweed is a native submerged rooted aquatic vegetative type that reproduces vegetatively by fragmentation, transport, and dispersal into the lake, typically by forms of waterfowl, such as geese, ducks, and or wading birds, such as herons, egrets, birds of that nature, and also sexually with seed production. So if an animal were to consume this in an affected pond somewhere and then come into Lake Gerard, then it spreads. So we basically had about a 100% benthic cover of this plant that came fast and furious in July, about the middle of the growing season, and that we had to go through extensive treatments. The only way to control this type of aquatic vegetation was EPA registered aquatic herbicide products to control it. Otherwise, it just spreads through physical removal and so forth. So we were very successful in getting rid of that in about 14 days. So that was one of the major water quality issues that we had in the middle of the season. I'm sorry, that was that bloom occurred on May 6th. I got ahead of myself. And the product that we use is Sonar One, Fluoridone. They probably the best product in the world for that type of treatment and control. Moving along quickly here, going the wrong way. The other thing that we had in conjunction with this bloom and shortly thereafter, it's kind of like a perfect storm. We had the pondweed bloom, and then we had an illicit discharge through one of the stormwater pipes in the southwest corner behind the playground there, through one of the pipes where some type of a milky appearing substance went into the lake. So it could have been a phosphate detergent. We're not really sure. We didn't get any chemical analysis done to determine that. but we had a nutrient loading effect right in the middle of the growing season there, and the system broke out into what's called a cyanobacteria bloom, green paint effect. This is very characteristic of isolated waterways throughout the region and the world. In fact, when nutrients become excessive from stormwater runoff or illicit discharge, and also with decomposing and dying pond weeds that had been treated. So this ended up being basically a 24/7 around the clock process to clear this up with herbicides and nutrient sequestering and constant testing of the water because of the concern of the lake benthos, the fauna. It's a great fishery. Lake Gerard is a huge fishery and supports an abundance of native beneficial fish species, game fish. And of course, we didn't want those to die, so we were doing treatments and components without doing whole lake treatments and keeping everything viable in there. So got that cleared up. I'd say it was about 9 to 12 days, and then kind of back to normal after those events, that perfect storm hit. This is the same type of thing that killed the fish in Silver Lake a little more than a decade and a half ago. So this is just the data and different things that we took during that event. And again, this was about 24/7 around the clock testing and application to get the lake restored pretty quickly. This was its appearance before. This is the southwest prong with that milky type substance entered into the lake, and then that accretion zone that we've been working on, discussing, studying the potential to correct that. I'll talk more about that later. This is several days later. Okay, next is the concerns regarding the lake. Well, obviously the first concern, excuse me, is the southwest prong located behind the playground and the art area there. This accretion zone. Again, just for review, for those that aren't aware, we have a comprehensive study that goes along with this accretion zone, but it's obviously caused a concern regarding aesthetics. This is like a dead-end lagoon syndrome where northeast winds and easterly winds force all of the leaf litter that falls from all those big mature trees there into the water. That material all gets trapped in that corner and then accretes over time and sinks and forms this bog. And we do have a problem still with the yard refuse from an adjoining property owner being put into the lake on an annual basis, which accelerates that accretion. And we're not just talking about leaf litter, we're talking about branches, tree stems, everything that goes into the lake. We have reached out to the Army Corps of Engineers and did receive written documentation from them that due to the fact that the lake has a direct connect to the Atlantic Ocean, that they would take jurisdiction of this lake if a jurisdictional determination was requested, and if any impacts for changes or alterations or fill to the lake were to take place, they have jurisdiction. That means that this is a jurisdictional 404 wetland, and no fill material was supposed to be placed in the lake at any time without a nationwide permit. So any fill material going into the lake is technically illegal. And obviously to fix that, that material now has to come out through process and procedure. Exposed soil zones. This is a really, really important thing to address that seems out of sight, out of mind. But if you notice on the southwest prong, the park zone of Lake Gerard there, we have basically unvegetated slopes that go to the lake during rain events. So all that silt and sediment and material and nutrient goes into the lake during significant rain events. So addressing exposed soil zones in and around the lake with overseeding and proper turf management is really important to protect the water column. The buffers help, but the fine silts and sediments and clay particles with bound phosphorus still enter into the lake when these exposed soils are inundated and sheet flow goes across these areas. The goose population has grown, and it appears to be a resident population. Immediately after our restoration program more than a decade ago, we were down to no resident birds, no native nuisance birds on the lake, only the migratory birds that would roost and then move off and conduct their niche elsewhere. This is a concern. There are several important goose control methods, such as birth control for addling of these resident births of these resident bird eggs in their nesting phase, which will be coming soon, so that we don't have exponential growth. That is a permit that is provided by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for free to the city if they so choose that, and then we conduct the process as the addling agent. Obviously, we would need to discuss this in detail and acquire the permit, which is simple, takes 10 minutes, but each bird, each mating pair starting March may have the potential to create a nest of 8 to 14. Say we had 4 nests, you do the math. You end up with quite a few new nesting pairs that would be imprinted to Lake Gerard and will always return to Lake Gerard to reproduce them. So that is something to consider for the goose control, because there are concerns coming from people in email to the city and me about the population growing. The accretion rate and at the end, and the inflow pipe there, the stormwater inflow pipe there that has also accreted, the silts and sediments and organics are starting to pile up in front of it. So that's something that is a concern. And again, we're just showing that accreted area. I'm not going to go through this whole thing now because it's off topic really and would take up a lot of time, but you can see where the organics are thrown in. One other concern is that when the area, the common ground area around the lake is maintained, the turf managers and grass cutters should not be taking the large limbs and branches and so forth and throwing them into the buffer of the lake, which then have to be removed. And if they go into the water, that causes problems. So we're trying to manage the organic material in there and not have anyone throw anything into the lake. That's happening on a regular basis. So let's see. I'm going to zip through the, okay. The next concern is the Atlantic white cedar bog on the north west prong of Lake Gerard. Has experienced some change over time. We did lose another one of the Atlantic white cedar trees, basically from root rot. This is very hydric wetland soil here, and we do get a insect larva grub that will feed on the roots, weakens the tree, and then they're all competing with each other now. So this one we did have to remove. A couple others we have to remove. The good thing about it, though, is we got great seedlings coming up in the place of the ones that are dying. And we have flagged all those seedlings because there's more people walking through this area for a recreational dog walking or just going through there. There's animals that are, deer lay down there, other animals live at the bed down there, people walk in. And so we flagged all the saplings so no one will step on those, the small new growing Atlantic white cedars. Then I just wanted to talk about the usages on the, just personal observations around the lake. The lake is serving as a great amenity still and continues to grow with, active recreation in terms of fishing, largemouth bass, pumpkin seed sunfish, catfish, carp. There are a lot of game species, and the fishing in here is exemplary. And then you have your passive recreation, the artists and so forth, and photographers that use the lake quite commonly. So we've seen a great increase in the uses of Lake Gerard. And with that synopsis, I'd be glad to host questions if I may.
Todd, would you go back one slide, please? I just
Yeah.
want to make note, one of our next topics, or our very next topic has to do with historical markers. And I want to reference this, so if everybody would just take a quick peek, this is a standard historical marker that I'll reference in the next topic. Todd, thank you very much for your presentation on an annual basis. We're very appreciative of all the work you do and your recommendations going forward. With that, I'd like to open it up to the commissioners to ask any questions, and then after that, we'll go to the public, see if they have any questions. Commissioner Legree?
Hi, Todd. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I'm troubled by the testing that you did. Did you, on those tests that you completed on the 27th and 28th of May?
Yes, sir.
How far was that from the day you put the algicide in the water?
Oh, that was let's see, the 7th. I think May 6th and 7th were the herbicide application times, the sonar application times.
Go ahead.
The cyanobacteria bloom, I'd have to go, I think that was the 27th. So that was there's a pretty big time frame in between.
Okay.
But the testing that we did was for nutrient levels and for dissolved oxygen concentration and pH.
But your tests don't show nutrient levels. So those tests were taken the day before and the day after you put the algicide in?
No, they were completely independent. The tests were done and taken during the cyanobacteria bloom and the period before, during, and after our algicide applications to control the cyanobacteria.
Before, during, and after? What I'm trying to get at is you tested on 2 different days and you show different things. The first test shows no inorganic nitrogen, which is something that should be in the water. And
I don't have everything on this presentation. I didn't put everything that we do and all data that we have onto this presentation. Otherwise, I can provide all that data and information at any time, but I didn't put everything on here. Just general references for, observing and learning styles. I didn't put everything on here.
I'm not sure then what the testing is supposed to be showing.
The testing was to
a lake with ideal pH, and then on the 28th you show a lake with outstanding dissolved oxygen. I don't know whether you tested for phosphorus. You don't show that, nor do you show a test for organic nitrogen, and both of those are essential for algae blooms.
We have all that data. So we have all that data and I can present it. Again, we didn't put everything on here because at the time our concern was the fishery. We had a cyanobacteria bloom, and when you have a cyanobacteria bloom at that extent, the reproduction of the organism is so fast and exponential that so is death and dying. So that's a eutrophy. That
comes when you have an intense eutrophication.
So let me finish.
Right.
Eutrophication is the result of organic decomposition and aerobic bacteria converting to an anaerobic state of metabolism when the dissolved oxygen crashes. So eutrophication occurs as a result of a cyanobacteria bloom. So we had to treat the cyanobacteria to save the lake. So in order to maintain the fishery, we had to study the essential things needed for life sustainment of the fishery, and that was dissolved oxygen and pH. That was the most critical thing. At that point, the phosphorus and nitrogen is important, but to keep the fishery alive, we had to keep the pH and the DO concentrations or sustainable. And that's what we focused on. That's the only data I put up here. I didn't put all the other data on here. I don't have, I could probably go get it and get it on here for you right now, but I don't know how long it would take.
Did you take a sample of the bloom that you think is blue-green algae, cyanobacteria?
We took many samples, yes. We took many samples, and also the Department of Natural Resources, Environmental Control also took samples, and it was all conclusive that it was a blue-green algae, a cyanophyte bloom, typical cyanophyte bloom.
Could you make that available? Could you make that?
I could, sure.
Mayor
Yeah.
and the commissioners?
Commissioner Legree, I think it would be helpful if maybe you outline some of your questions so that we can all see them. And then that'll be easier for Todd to reply to.
That'd be great. Let me read a letter that came from Sola 3, who is probably the premier advocate in this town for our lakes. It'll take about 3 minutes, but I think the public needs to hear it. And it's not available on the agenda today. It was on the last workshop. But Save Our Lakes Alliance 3, first project was in 2004, was to work with the city of Rehoboth and DENREC to restore the long neglected Lake Gerard. The restoration improved the health of lake's water and resulted in fewer Canada geese. Unfortunately, over the years, the western prong has filled with organic material as well as silt sediment entering from the large storm drain located there. During the construction of City Hall, there was a major breach in the silt fences that resulted in hours of silt and sediment flowing into this area of the lake. The recent restoration of Lake Avenue has likely brought more sediment into the lakes through the storm drains. Dredging has been proposed to remove the unwanted matter and increase the depth of the water in the western prong. We request that the mayor and commissioners postpone this project until a comprehensive stormwater management plan has been developed and implemented by the city. The plan should require that storm drains be fitted with state-of-the-art filtration devices and traps to lessen the deposits of silt, sediment, and other elements from entering the lake. It would be unwise and a waste of resources to dredge the lake before this is completed, because sediment, silt, and other solids continue to accumulate into the lake, and it has been since 2004, and requiring more remediation down the road. Lake Gerard has at least 9 other storm drains that carry silt, sediment, and pollutants into the lake. As recently as May of 2020, there was an outbreak of algae on the lake, creating a potential health risk. Comprehensive stormwater management plan will go a long way to improve the overall health of Lake Gerard as well as Silver Lake. And they talk about the growth of the riparian buffer, which has become far too wide. And they brought this to the attention of the Rehoboth officials. So she asks again that the city provide oversight of the maintenance to assure compliance and to satisfy the concerns raised by homeowners. And I couldn't agree more with the points that are developed in this letter. And so that's all I'm.
Commissioner Legree, I think we need to move on a little bit. The purpose of today's thing was to give a report more than to rebut it and such. I do think that we could convert what you just read into an agenda topic where we can notice everybody and have be more alert and have SOLA represent themselves rather than trying to convey what they want. So let's do that, and if you don't mind, we'll move forward. All right, Commissioner Byrne, please.
Thanks, Mayor. And thank you, Todd, for your report, and particularly related to my comment and question. Thank you for emphasizing the increased numbers of Canada geese on the lake and in the park areas around it. That's in just the last 8 or 9 days, I've received 3 letters, comments from residents in the general area that walk the trails and lake area and have expressed a real genuine concern about the increased number of geese, and then particularly the resulting goose waste that's left on the trails and the sidewalk. And they've all commented, like you did, how the population has increased dramatically in recent months and recent years. So I think it's an area that we need to pay close attention to, and I think the city should have some serious discussions with you and or whoever's the appropriate source in terms of how we limit the goose population and therefore the resulting waste in the area.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. And again, I think we want to take notes on all these things and design a agenda topic around it so that we can have more discussion among ourselves. Very much appreciated. Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, my question similar there. Mr. Fritschman, you noted that we now have a reestablished resident goose population. Prior, several years back, we had eliminated that. Is there one or two contributing factors of why that resident population has once again been established?
Well, so any birds that are non-migratory that have landed on the lake and has successfully reproduced, any of their offspring is imprinted to that system, and by the laws of nature will return there to reproduce themselves. Geese don't have property borders, like they don't understand property lines and surveys and so forth. So a mating pair, for instance, on the Rehoboth-Lewis Canal or somewhere along there, could have migrated over to the lake at one point and set up a nest, or on the peninsula there in the wooded peninsula and nested back in there unseen to anyone. And then their offspring stayed and comes and reproduces themselves the following season. So that number can grow exponentially. We haven't done any goose control measures other than the purpose of the buffers itself. Part of the buffering of the lake was to stabilize the soils and assist in a small little BMP to have elevated shorelines that deter geese somewhat. So that was very successful. But we have all types of goose management protocols and procedures that we can employ. It's just that we can't do them without authorization and meeting and discussing them with the city. And I'm not trying to promote these. I'm just, as the city consultant, I'm telling you what they are. But the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the state of Delaware Division of Fish and Wildlife have programs in place for goose controls. We are licensed with a nuisance animal control license to do certain things. We can also acquire the addling permit to control and do birth control, if indeed the community took that path. We also have a capture cannon to physically remove. If it came to that, we have a state-of-the-art piece of equipment to capture and remove the geese through a process that we would have to talk about more in depth. The good news is we can control the geese just like before. The bad news is the population is growing. The concern is real. We would just need to sit down and discuss the options and methods and select the best management practices the city wishes to utilize. One thing is obviously that if we feed Canada geese or any form of wildlife, especially birds, they're immediately conditioned. They're immediately conditioned and toward a domesticative way, and they will always return for that energy source. So simple things like monitoring and maintaining no feeding and that type of thing, the best that we all can, and whatever type of civil enforcement can be done to prevent feeding of any, it's a mistaken kindness to feed the birds. And then going through some of these management things, but on a scientific recommendation only, the addling of the eggs in any nest is really important, or all those birds born on the system. And we can forward the links to whoever for these permits. Once we get the permit, we go ahead and do the process. But this may require a secondary meeting with a committee or whoever the commissioners or mayor or town manager call upon me to meet with.
Thank you, Todd. Again, I want to repeat that, we'll design a future agenda topic for this, and I would suggest that any of you that have particular questions or something, forward them to me, and I'll compile them, and we'll develop something. With that, I'm trying to wrap this up, but I want to give everybody a fair chance. Two people just lowered their hands. Are there no commissioner? If there's no other commissioner questions, then I'd like to go to the members of the public. Carol Everhart, would you like to contribute anything to this topic?
No comments, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Walter Brittingham?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Mr. Perry?
Well, I do have a number of questions about the white cedars, but I'll submit those in writing. Thank you.
All right, we'll put a note in there for a future discussion, Mr. Perry. Stuart Martins?
No comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Frank Cooper? No. And Kathy McGinnis. All right. See, they both want to talk about historical markers. Last chance for any questions from the commissioners? Any further comment, Todd? We appreciate you coming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We'll be back in touch. We appreciate your time and your willingness perhaps to come back to us in a future meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, I want to go, we'll move on to the next bit of business, which is presentations on 2 proposed state historical markers to be located on or near the boardwalk. One recognizing our Rehoboth Beach LGBTQ community and Poodle Beach, and the second one recognizing Rehoboth Beach Patrol. Should be able to see some historical marker eligibility. I would like to share with you, reference back to that state historical marker that we paused on and took a look at in Mr. Fritschman's presentation. You know, at this point, the Village Improvement Association has installed state historical markers at the Rehoboth Beach Public Library, at Lake Gerard near the fishing bridge, on the roundabout near the lighthouse. And they have another one pending. The topic is the surf line that used to be used to help people get in and out of the water. And that would be located at Rehoboth Avenue. The time frame for that historical marker, which has already been approved by the state and approved by the commissioners, is sometime late summer after the COVID restrictions are listed. So to be determined. As far as state historical markers go, anybody can apply for them. They need to meet certain eligibility criteria. Some of the criteria includes that the subject marker can be events, places, persons, groups, institutions. In these cases, for the 2 proposed, I think they both fall under social history. It does mention in the guidelines that a proposed marker topic must have historical significance based on its influence, effect, or impact on the course of history or coastal cultural development in Rehoboth Beach and be clearly demonstrated. It does have a criteria that if the historical marker is to be installed in a municipality, that it does need the approval of the property owner or the city or town, before it can be ordered and approved by finally approved, certified by the state. That's why we're making a presentation today, an introduction to the topic, and I expect at our next regular voting meeting on the 19th to formally vote, if we're ready, on approval of the two historical marker signs. The one application was submitted by Frank Cooper. Actually, during my campaign for mayor, I brought this up and advocated for it, and Frank took it and ran with it. Thank you, Frank. And it has to do with a marker at the south end of the boardwalk, and you can read the application there. The area of beach in the city of Rehoboth Beach, commonly referred to as Poodle Beach, has been an historic refuge for members of the LGBTQ community for over 70 years. And it goes on from there. Frank believes it's time, as I do, for recognition. The second historical marker application was submitted by Kathy McGinnis, former city commissioner, in her role as a citizen of Rehoboth Beach area here. Her marker notes that this marker denotes historical significance that has crossed many generations in Delawareans. The Rehoboth Beach Patrol has not only been a popular reflection of the nation's southern capital, the RBP has shown historical significance based on its influence, etc. So this was submitted by Kathy. Again, we will take a formal vote on whether or not to approve these historical markers going forward and being installed in Rehoboth Beach. The process would be that if we approve it, then we notify the state. The state goes to the next steps, which is to create their own language, because the state archivist has the final say-so on the language that's actually on the state marker. And at some point after being approved, then there would be a site visit with the state, and I would be bringing in our representative from the Department of Natural Resources, because as you know, and when we install anything on or near the boardwalk or want to install anything near the beach, there are some construction lines there that have to be met, and DENREC might have a say-so on where they're sited. So those are, is Frank on the line yet? Frank's not on the line yet. Kathy McGinnis on the line? Nope, she's not on the line either. I want to again thank them for doing this. The time frames for installation of these is to be determined. Again, COVID is delaying dedication ceremonies and gatherings, and the earliest likely time for installation of either of these two historical markers would be probably September of 2021. So again, to be determined. Are there any, how do I get out of here? Are there any questions? I would like to say that I believe embedded in the agenda is a support letter from Camp Rehoboth. Obviously, I approached them to see if they would support such a historical marker sign down at Poodle Beach. And their response was an affirmation that yes, they support it. And you'll notice in the support letter that other groups join in this support. They also mentioned in their support letter a support for a second historical marker for West Rehoboth. And of course, that's outside our jurisdiction and not part of this discussion. So again, we thank Camp Rehoboth for their support, and this will be on the agenda for February 19th. With that, we'll go to the commissioners and then the public. Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Yeah, thank you very much. I certainly support the Poodle Beach one and the second one for the Beach Patrol. And you alluded it into your comments, but just will we have any further updates from the Delaware Public Archives about the contents of the text or the specific placement of the area or anything of that nature? Does the city enter into that, or is that exclusively managed by the public archives?
Well, my understanding is that the final word is from the state archivist. However, again, my understanding is that after it's approved and then they invest time into creating language, that they will probably reach out to Frank and Kathy for some initial language, need to have it verified, and then they would come to us as well, as best of my recollection. And I can find that out before our next meeting when we entertain a vote on it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? We'll go to members of the public then. Carol Everhart.
No comment.
Thank you, Carol. Mr. Brittingham.
Comment.
Mr. Perry.
Just want to say that I definitely support moving forward with these two markers.
Thank you. Stuart Martins.
I support the markers as well.
Thank you very much. And Frank and Kathy are not here. Very good. Thank you. With that, we'll put that on the agenda for the 19th. Again, you can find some of this information as a support document already embedded in the agenda. Thank you very much. Next bit of business is discuss expanding the requirement for submittal of digital copies of forms, plans, and other submittals beyond the currently required digital copies for only permit of compliance submissions. By example, expanding the request for digital submittals to Planning Commission, Board of Adjustment, Parks and Shade Tree Commission, and building permit submissions. The support document is merely a copy of the resolution that was adopted and the digital policy. Really, all the digital policy is doing is confirming and puts parameters down and states that all digital copies must exactly mirror handwritten copies. Obviously, that needs to happen. So that's not that useful in this conversation, but what is useful is knowing that the only group required to submit electronic or digital submissions today are restaurants submitting permit of compliance applications. That's because that is codified and a requirement in the code. What I would like to do is expand that by amending the code to require Planning Commission applicants, Board of Adjustment applicants, Parks and Shade Tree Commission applicants, and specific building permit applicants to also share digital copies. Right now, what happens is we're doing a pretty good job. I think we do include some or most digital copies of applications. However, whether it is a 8.5 by 11 or a 24 by 30 inch blueprint, our building and licensing department and IT department have to scan that, create an electronic file, and then put it online. And that I think is a needless burden on our IT and building and licensing. And all it takes is a click of the button for the engineers and designers to create a PDF of their drawings. So I would intend to put that on, actually, unless there's any unfavorable comment, I would like to direct the city managers to start development of code amendments to require that. Is there any conversation on this? Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, thank you. I think that actually, Mayor, you and I were sponsor or champion the rewrite of the permit of compliance application, which included the submission of electronic documents some years back. And I really look at that as a test case that this has been very successful. It's not a burden on any of the applicants or what have you. And to take that policy that's been in place for 2 years and apply it to all others seems to be without consequence to anyone. We've really put a test case out there. It's worked. So let's move forward and apply it to all applications.
Thank you. And I do remember that we just went with one group to begin to test the situation, and I agree. I think it's been very successful. With that, we'll go to that program. I will direct the city manager to look into amending the codes. However, let's go to the public real quick, see if they have any comments. Carol Everhart.
That type of information provided in that manner is always helpful.
Thank you, Carol. Mr. Brittingham.
No comment.
Thank you. Mr. Perry.
No comment at this time.
Mr. Martins.
No comment.
Thank you. And Frank and Kathy, I guess, are still not on. Thank you very much. We'll go with that program. I think it will benefit us as well as the public to a greater degree than what we do now. With that, we'll move on to the next topic, which is an introductory discussion on development of rules and regulations related to the use of the new Grove Park Canal Dock. Would like to make note that our support document references a proposed amendment creating a Chapter 195 Parks and Recreation. That is not noticed, so how I intended to address this topic is in two parts. Today, I want to pick out the bits and pieces relative to the Canal Park only. And then a future meeting, March meeting at the March workshop, we will entertain the entirety of the Chapter 195 Parks and Recreation chapter as proposed, including a review of canal rules and regulations, but also the additional rules and regulations that are noted. Sharon, do you want to take over?
Well, before you do, Mayor.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So I just want to say that I'm a member of the board of the LRCIA, which has been responsible for the vast majority of the funding of the dock, and as such, I'm going to recuse myself from this conversation.
Thank you, thank you, Pat. Go ahead.
Obviously, with the completion of the Grove Park Canal Dock, we needed to come up with some rules and regulations in line with everything related to the park, including the hours of operation, safety issues, and concerns that staff might have. So, Liz, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, can you kind of give the commissioners a synopsis of what you have, particularly relating to Grove Park Canal Dock?
Sure. Let me turn on my video, if that works. There we go. So basically all of the rules and regs, pretty much even the general section, apply to the Grove Park Canal Dock. And if you look, we did one section with, let me see, 6 things specific only to Grove Park Canal Dock. So we can talk exclusively for that. We all met in a big group, obviously, the city manager, police chief, public works director, and several others to discuss these. And I think what we came up with does a pretty good job of laying things out for the dock itself. So we proposed that for the 2 boat slips, it's only for loading and unloading passengers, 30-minute max time dock. So after 30 minutes, you have to move on. You can't stay there all day. That being said, if you're there for 31 minutes, no one's going to run down and tell you to leave. And I think we added a definition for watercraft up at the top. Make sure. Basically anything, so a motorized boat, kayak, paddleboard, anything that moves and floats on water. Okay, and then we talked with the police chief about how we would deal with people that leave their boat there all day. And they came up with an idea of where it could be potentially locked. Anybody who's had a boat knows how that works. Hopefully that'll never be an issue. Obviously nobody can leave a kayak, paddleboard, boat, etc., backpack, paddles overnight. So when we go down to close and open the gate, we'll be checking those things as well. And then I think C was related also to the insurance company's recommendation that basically the city, we're not responsible for any damage or anything that may happen to your belongings if you leave them down there. Same being said, we are not responsible for anybody who fails to secure their watercraft. So if somebody docks a kayak and doesn't tie it up and it floats away, that's on them. Any damage to the dock, accidental or intentional, the ramp, the landscaping, anything else will have to be repaired by the damaging party's expense. So if a boat goes by in the no wake zone and smashes another boat into our dock, they're gonna have to pay for it. And then also we added the fishing is only permitted from that specific portion. When you go down the ramp, there's going to be an area denoted for fishing only, and it's not the whole floating dock. It's a little side portion. And that was it for the canal dock specifics.
Very good. Thank you very much. Also wanted to acknowledge that Evan Miller worked with you on that, and we thank you. Again, this wasn't noticed, but I appreciate your work in the March workshop. We will put on additional discussion of the Chapter 195 in its entirety. But I think this is a good introduction to the Canal Park Dock rules and regulations. Was there any, two questions. One is, has anybody checked with the town of Lewis to see if they have any rules and regulations that might help us?
Yeah, so I've been in communication with their Parks and Rec manager over there, and they have a lot more going on in their marina than we will with just these two boat slips, essentially. The main difference between them and us, though, I mean, they obviously have their dock master, but their boat slips are actually for rent, but businesses are not allowed to use it at all. So the business, like the water taxis and those, are actually docked privately, not on the city's dock.
And thank you, Liz. And I noticed that we don't address any dock fees. Is use of the dock all intended to be free?
That's something we discussed at length and figured would be best put to the commissioners for their input. We have a couple of different options. Obviously, we can let everybody use it for free. It seems like nationwide, typically people have to have some sort of permit, license, or agreement to use the dock, and there is a fee associated with that. So it just depends what route we want to go. There's also the option of doing, having like one specific vendor, for example, for kayaks and paddle boards, like the way the state park does.
As long as we have proper risk control measurements in place, where the city is also indemnified if we so chose to have a vendor there, or any third-party operator for kayak rental or paddle boarding, as long as there would be proper indemnification for the city as well, we would be okay.
So we would not have increased premiums.
Correct.
Okay, great, thanks. You know, and as I heard Liz list all these rules, it occurred to me then this would be true of all the parks probably, that we would probably want to post them, right? We would want to have some sort of sign there at the dock to post specific rules that are related to the dock. Because the rules as a whole for the whole Parks and Rec ordinance are rather voluminous, but I think there are probably some that be posted there. And then along with that, there seems to be a contradiction in a way between on the fishing part, because it's on number F, fishing is permitted only in the designated portion of the ramp. However, paragraph 23 of the overall ordinance says that no person may fish, and it includes the Grove Park Canal Dock, without first having obtained a no-cost license. So it's unclear to me if a license is required for that location. It's certainly implied elsewhere in the code, but not there. And then lastly, I certainly support having a discussion and having it soon on fees because the dock is going to be used in the near future, we hope. And I agree that we need to establish fees for the use of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Legree? Unmute yourself. There you go.
I think I heard you say that, Liz, that someone will be locking and unlocking the access to the dock. The reason I'm asking is I'm hoping that we don't allow loitering or congregation or any even being down there when the dock is closed. Is that correct?
That's correct, Commissioner, and Chief Banks can further address that, but I think with the cameras in place, they'll be able to monitor that, and go ahead, Chief.
Thank you. Let me back up to Commissioner Gay's question about monitoring the situation, kind of goes into yours, Commissioner Gray. Is that we'll be locking Gate A up just like we do at Grove at Delville Beach parking lot and all that at night when it closes, and we'll have the bike patrol go down hourly and all around that time to go down and just monitor what's going on. Plus, we have the cameras that we'll be able to look at once they're up and operational. So I don't see it as extra burden. It's just another assignment during their normal patrols to go down that area as we would any other event and things that are going on at different times. I don't know if that answers it or anything specifically, but you know, as far as how long a boat is docked down there, it's just like we look at that same way as we do a motor vehicle in a 30-minute parking area. We just take a note, we go ahead and kind of put it down in our notebook or whatever, what time it was. And then when you go back, if it's still there, then you address it.
Thanks, Chief. I know that there are rules and regulations in some states that make it very difficult, but sounds good.
Well, I'm sure the rules and regulations will evolve as we move forward and it starts to get used. Commissioner Czarnowski?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners Gossett and Gay covered everything that I had, so we're good. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you very much. If there's no further commissioner comment, then I'd like to poll the members of the public. Carol Everhart?
I will wait till there's more information.
All right, thank you. Mr. Brittingham?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Perry?
No comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martins?
No comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Frank and Kathy are still not on. Very good. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to the next item of business, which is a status report on Wilmington, Baltimore Avenue Streetscape project and solicitation of task force members. This is really kind of an introductory discussion on the task force, but I'd like to start off with a little update on the process from myself and Kevin Williams. As you know, the CDP over the years has mentioned the desire for streetscape improvements on Wilmington and Baltimore. And of course, that area also incorporates not just the first two blocks of Wilmington, first two blocks of Baltimore, but also the cross streets connecting Wilmington and Baltimore along First Street and Second Street. With that, Kevin, can I turn it over to you? If you would give us just a brief overview that we started with an RFP, but we're taking a different route in the end, and kind of where we are, and then I'll get into the task force details itself.
Mayor, before you do that, I just note for the record that Commissioner Coluzzi has rejoined the discussion.
All right. Yes, Commissioner Coluzzi's back with us. Thank you, Commissioner Coluzzi.
Thank you, Mayor. As many of you will remember, a couple of months ago, we actually solicited an RFP advertising for selection of a consultant to come in and develop a feasibility study to look at the potential of doing streetscape projects along Wilmington and Baltimore Avenues, as well as the mayor said, the connecting streets to that. Parallel to that, our projects coordinator and I worked up a grant application to DelDOT under their TAP program to see if they would entertain either a grant to us, or under this program, they actually have another option of doing fully funded on the DelDOT, and they would select a consultant to do the effort. Very early on, DelDOT approved our request, and we've gone down the path of them owning the project, in that they're going to fully fund the effort. Currently, the estimate is about $95,000 plus or minus to do that work. They have selected one of their on-call consultants, Rossi Engineers, I think Rossi something, that will do the concept plan for us. So we have had initial discussions with DelDOT and the consultant, and we're in the process now of finalizing the scope of work for them and setting up a kickoff meeting with the city staff. One of the things we wanted to do as part of this effort was to develop, a streetscape task force, which the mayor just touched on. And I know he's going to kind of go through some of the rules and thoughts on the composition of that task force here momentarily. But it's moving forward, and we're hoping to have a kickoff meeting with the consultant either the end of this week or by the middle of next week.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions directly for him just on what he's talked about? Because again, I'm going to get to the task force in a minute. Commissioner Calusi? You're muted.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that in looking at speaking to the consultant, that we do make sure they include bicycle racks, bicyclists, how they're going to access that area, because, and scooters as well. As you know, we currently have scooter parking and bicycle parking on Baltimore Avenue in particular on the street itself. So we do need to think about how that's going to be accommodating, and hopefully whatever statement of work you all prepare will include that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, they are all covered. They're all covered. And, this is, I think we all intend this to be a very public process, and you may even be participating on it, Commissioner Calusi, but we'll go forward. Again, I want to go into the document that in a minute, but if you have any questions specifically for Kevin, then now's the time to do it. Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, just a quick question. The amount of the grant from DelDOT, or I didn't catch the dollar amount.
95.
So right now, the consultant has proposed, their cost estimate is 95 plus or minus thousand to do the work. And if you're familiar with some of the other TAP program grants, it's typically an 80-20 split, DelDOT at 80 and the municipality at 20. But for the concept plan / feasibility study portion of a program, they actually fully fund that. So our expectation and their agreement so far has been to fully fund that at 95 plus or minus as we work through finalizing the scope, but be right around there.
And for the special meeting next week, if I could ask you to also include some projects that the Rossi Group has completed within the state of Delaware or other places in the United States, so we can get a sample of their type of work that they have completed successfully.
Sure. Yeah, they've actually worked on Rehoboth Avenue as she actually was a member of the JMT team that worked on a portion of the Rehoboth Avenue Streetscape, and then has since gone out and opened up her own shop some years ago. They have a great website. Anybody wants to go on, rossi.com. I think Evan's going to check that real quickly. And they have submitted a proposal that to DelDOT for the initial stages of this, and we can probably get that out to the commissioners.
That would be appreciated.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, first of all, I'm so pleased to see this project coming to life and moving forward. I mean, it's long awaited, and I could not be happier about that. So thank you not only for putting it on the agenda today, but thank you for the special meeting on Friday so that we can move forward. I know that you want to get started talking about the task force, and I do too. But my biggest comment actually has to do with the scope of work. Because as much as I love everything, and I've read the RFPs that went out, and I saw the stuff about the task force, there's a piece missing, and that piece is green infrastructure. And I just want to make sure that we do add that as a very specific item to the scope of work. For instance, I just mention a couple things. In the RFP, there's a line that of particular importance is the desire to maximize pedestrian and bicycle safety, improve aesthetics, maximize limited parking, and improve overall commercial viability of these streets. I certainly think we should incorporate green infrastructure elements in sustainable design for better stormwater management. And that's got to be a key element to it. I'm reminded that actually it was 2 years ago this month that Tony Sharp gave a very compelling presentation to the commissioners. And at the end of it was she got agreement that there would be a process improvement essentially to any public project that's done to incorporate it. At the time, it was primarily trees. Given the location of this project close to the ocean, it may be other elements besides trees or in addition to just a few trees, but nevertheless, that green infrastructure becomes a very important component of any public project that we do. So I just want to throw that out there.
Evan Miller's been working very closely on this, and I'd like to have him respond.
Yeah, Commissioner, I'll just mention that if you'll recall, we had submitted a application to the Building Blocks for Sustainable Communities grant, which is actually administered by the Environmental Protection Agency. So we've heard back from them we think that we are going to be selected for their help desk process. And through that process, we'll have direct contacts from federal agencies to help us sort of with this process. I think mostly just trying to get some federal, assistance in terms of planning for the streetscape. And one of the things that they specifically called out in the letters of interest was the whole green infrastructure concept. So I'm sure that through our work with the Environmental Protection Agency and their resources there, we can certainly come up with some ideas for infrastructure. And then just to follow up on Kevin's comment too, Rossi's website, it's Rossi, ROSSITG.com.
Evan, thank you very much. Actually, I had known that they're on my list as an important resource. EPA has a ton of stuff on green infrastructure. So thank you very much. I'm glad you're in touch with them.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I'll move on. There is a support document embedded in the agenda, so I don't intend to go over every detail of it. It is a draft task force roles and responsibilities list. Authored primarily by Evan Miller. Thank you, Evan, and myself. And I just want to remind everybody that with such a big project, there is a city project team designated. It's listed there, City Rehoboth Beach staff, myself, Del Dot, and the Rossi group. That's for a meeting on the nitty-gritty of things. But this project team is going to be soliciting input from the task force. The task force objectives noted on page 1 say task force members will collaborate and provide input and feedback on design elements and design concepts for a new streetscape vision for selected commercial areas as noted. The important thing to note is this, I view the task force providing input as very valuable to this process. Of course, I do want to share with you what the meeting schedule is, because anybody that applies for membership needs to know that we need to know that they're committed and they've got availability to attend most of the meetings. On page 2, lines 41 to 56 or so, it indicates that the meeting schedule is to be determined. We don't know yet. It could be weekly at the beginning. It could be bi-weekly. Or as needed, depending on the schedule of the consultants. Likely in the morning, we've bannered around Wednesday mornings under consideration, so that's a possibility. All task force meetings will be open to the public, will be noticed at least 7 days in advance, and comply with the Freedom of Information Act. Membership is to be by nomination of the mayor with confirmation of the Board of Commissioners. Members will be expected to attend all or at least majority of the meetings in order to attain a quorum of members so that we can officially be able to conduct business. We're not intending for any proxies, so we want each individual member to show up as many times as they can for continuity's sake. Meetings will be conducted virtually while under the state of emergency in response to the pandemic. Yet, when in-person meetings are again allowed, we expect everybody to be in town to be able to meet in person. The membership application is being worked on. I didn't see any need for businesses to fill out the committee application because to me, it's asking too much information. I think for this business application, can be as simple as your name, your business name, where you're located, how many years have you been there, and tell us a little about your experience that makes you a good candidate for this. I don't think we have to go into every question that's posed on the committee form, except perhaps for some of the citizen committee members. So I have worked up with Evan and Kevin and Sharon a task force membership list that's proposed, myself as chair, and then the rest of the membership would be comprised of residents, community organizations, business representatives from each block representing the accommodations, service, retail, and restaurant entities. And then I have a list there on page 3, starting at line 67, that gives you a flavor. Now, this is not rigid. I intend it to be flexible, because there may well be somebody on Baltimore that has a store also on Wilmington that could do 2 pieces or something. But it all depends on how many applicants we get. But you can see there, Wilmington Avenue, first block and second block, Baltimore Avenue, first block, second block. We have a North First Street representative, South First Street representative, South 2nd Street representative. If you recall, we don't need a North 2nd Street representative because that is being conducted right now as part of Lake Avenue Streetscape Phase 2. We don't need a representative there. I'm proposing 2 citizens to be on there. They could very well, again, looking at flexibility, have somebody in mind perhaps that's on the parking task force that's also a citizen and could fulfill 2 roles there. Chamber of Commerce representative, Main Street representative, Street and Transportation Committee representative, and again, possibly Parking Task Force representative. Pat, I'll be approaching you to see whether it's yourself or somebody else that you would like to represent the Street and Transportation Committee as noted. As far as evaluations, my expectation is that Kevin Williams, Sharon, and myself will do the evaluating. And make nominations to you all as early as the next voting meeting. The reason this is accelerated again is that we thought we had a little more time, or I thought we had a little more time, but through the RFP process, and as Kevin explained, that process changed a little bit. And good news, we're on a faster track right now, so we'll do the best we can at getting advertising out, and soliciting members of the community, and moving forward with this. The time frame for the task force, again, is a little accelerated from what we thought it might be. We thought that the task force would begin meeting upon appointment by the mayor and commissioners meeting. Obviously, we've got to notice the meeting and get people going, but we would start a schedule as soon as possible. They would need to meet as often as necessary. And the duration could go all the way till November 2021. So this is a long duration. Meeting schedules probably accelerated more so at the beginning and slowed down in the middle. We just don't know, to be determined, if you will. So the detailed timeline there indicates that the Board of Commissioners I would like to have a formal vote to form the task force at our February 12th special meeting at the end of this week, and then start soliciting memberships at that time. And then hopefully we can make nominations to appoint members with consideration or vote at our February 19th meeting, and then start setting up schedules at that time. I know this is a rather quick schedule, but again, we'll talk more about it on February 12th, do any clarifications as needed, and move forward from there. Commissioner Byrne?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I also want to add my strong support to see this moving along. I like the fact that you say you're going to move it quickly and yet in a very broad kind of way, get a lot of representation. I want to emphasize something that Commissioner Gay said that I think is critically important, and that is that for everything that's done, that we're very concerned about the green infrastructure and the implications for our natural environment. And I would really advocate on your list, without wanting to get a gigantic, unworkable size task force, that there be somebody that comes from the Green Infrastructure Committee and or the Environment Committee that really is there to kind of worry about, to think about, to bring good information about green infrastructure as this thinking and work goes ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll definitely give that consideration. Also in light of trying not to get too big and wieldy, and we've got to be mindful also that everybody is welcome to our meetings, commissioners as well as the members of the public can contribute. That's how I've always run my meetings, that everybody is able to contribute. So I will take that in mind. Thank you very much. Commissioner Sranowski?
Thank you, Mayor. In reading the task force, and I thank you, it's very well thought out. But one thing that occurred to me is there's no representation from either building and licensing or the planning commission, and there's who would know commercial projects that are on the docket, and there's two very large projects that are going to impact both Baltimore and Wilmington Avenue. So just something to think about.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. We'll take that into advisement also. Appreciate it. If there's no other comments, we're going to move to the public. Carol Everhart.
Well, number one, I agree. Thank you, Mayor. I do agree with having a separate application for businesses, and also as well as the overall plan that you put out for the task force. And I'll hold any other comment till later.
Thank you, Carol. Mr. Brittingham?
Good planning, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brittingham. Mr. Perry?
Yes, I'm also pleased to see this project finally getting some legs. I know it was something that the Planning Commission was very much interested in focusing attention on for the upcoming new CDP. And so thank you very much for moving this forward.
Thank you. Mr. Martins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just echo Commissioner Burns' comments, especially with regard to the Environmental Committee. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Martins. And Frank and Kathy are still not on. That ends the public discussion on that. Thank you very much. We will proceed as noted. And I thank you for your input and support of this important project coming up. With that, we'll move on to the next bit of business, which is report of the Animal Issues Committee. However, before I turn it over to Dick, I would like to have a reminder that according to our policy that we adopted, all committees are supposed to bring forward potential future agenda topics, new potential future agenda topics to this Board of Commissioners so that we can hear about it and maybe give you input or whatever. Having noted that, I think it's better to allow the opportunity for each committee to have twice a month to make reports, not just at our regular voting meeting, which has been the standard. So again, I'm opening that opportunity to twice a month to be able to do that. Thank you very much. So with that, we'll go to report of the Animal Issues Committee. Commissioner Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. And yeah, just to pick up on what you said, this is really for information only, just to give a heads up to all of you in terms of three topics the Animal Issues Committee had on their very recent agenda and are starting to do some investigative work around. They've not taken a stance on it, so just a heads up for information. First topic is there's been an increasing number of letters off and on over the last number of months. Again, and this comes up periodically, about the need for dog waste dispensers on the boardwalk and possibly in our city parks. So we're taking a look at that. We haven't taken a stance, like I said. We're investigating what other communities have done, are doing. We'll be reaching out to Public Works Director, City Manager, and others to gather some information about what are all of the pros and cons of moving in that direction. Second topic is the issue of pets, particularly dogs, left in unattended hot vehicles in the summertime. There is a state regulation that allows our police officers to deal with it, but it's a fairly limited ordinance. So we're taking a look at whether we as a city ought to be doing more about that, and whether it's a real issue or if it's just something that we're concerned about and worried about. And a third and somewhat related topic is dogs in the back of pickup trucks. There's been increasing concern about people whizzing around town with dogs in the back of their pickup trucks, parking and going off about their business and leaving the dog in the back of the pickup truck that can tend to bark at folks going by and so on. So three topics that the Animal Issues Committee is just beginning to investigate. Just wanted to give you a heads up. If you have thoughts about that, certainly send them in to me, and I'll keep you up to date as we move along. And that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So essentially, poop bags, using single-use plastic bags for poop bags, hot dogs, and loose dogs in truck beds. Those are all good topics. Thank you very much.
There you go.
With that, we'll go to the next item. We'll be back with Commissioner Byrne in a second. Presentation and discussion of Environment Committee recommendations. Number one, recommendation for the elimination of plastic straw use in establishments currently using plastic straws. And recommendation number two, that all establishments that use straws display educational table placards to reduce use of the straws. I hope I characterized that correctly. Commissioner Byrne, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks again, Mayor. Yeah, this is a complex topic. My plan is to hopefully take about 15 minutes, more or less, and generate some discussion. I want to start off by giving thanks to Charlie Garlow, the Vice Chair of the Environment Committee, and one of our citizen members, Stuart Martin. Stuart is on the call today, and in just a little bit, I'll call on him to make some comments. So what I'm going to do is kind of give a big picture, an overview, some background, and then kind of narrow it down to what I would like from all of you commissioners and mayor as a result of this being on the agenda today. Overall goal, big picture, is to lower the carbon footprint and to reduce kind of the resulting negative consequences in the environment. Pre-pandemic, going back 2 years ago and up to about a year ago, the Environment Committee had a series of very serious discussions, doing a lot of research, a lot of writing and work. Charlie Garlow was leading a lot of that to really parallel what the state of Delaware was doing, and that was working toward eliminating single-use plastic products. And what did happen out of the legislature 2 years ago that became law was the elimination of single-use plastic bags in large retail environments. I think we're all experiencing that right now. And so that caused the Environment Committee to think about, what does that mean in our small city? We had a large kind of broad scale proposal that we were working on. And then, of course, what happened a little over a year ago was COVID hit, and the resulting economic blow to our local businesses caused the Environment Committee to really step back and say, okay, what actions are realistic given the economic environment that we're in right now, but also can continue to move us toward a long-range goal of reducing and eliminating single-use plastic products. And let me add that a little over a year ago, December 9th, 2019, we all received a letter jointly written by Rehoboth Beach Homeowners Association and Save Our Lakes Alliance 3, SOLA 3, jointly signed by Sally Foreman, president of SOLA 3, and Mark
Saunders.
Saunders, yes, thanks. Who was the incoming president of the Rehoboth Beach Homeowners Association. And that letter came to us and was very direct. And I'm going to just pull out a couple of statements that they made. But essentially what they were doing is that they were requesting the city of Rehoboth Beach to join hundreds of other communities, beach communities, states, and countries throughout the world to eliminate and ban single-use plastics, including straws, bags, styrofoam, etc. They went on to say that more than 50% of the world's population is now covered by similar bans. More than 50 communities in the state of New Jersey, our neighbor, have similar ordinances. Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., a number of other communities have done this. So I just want you to know that we are not alone in thinking about this, working at this, and we have strong support from two of the organizations that we work with closely, SOLA 3 and the Rehoboth Beach Homeowners Association. So as the Environment Committee thought seriously about how do we kind of downsize our action right now during the pandemic and during the blow to the economies of our local businesses, we thought, where can we start? And we thought we could reduce the use of plastic straws and substitute the use of plastic straws with biodegradable products that are out there. And I'm saying that as opposed to compostable. Both are better than plastic, but compostable straws, by the way, require special compostable environments in order to compost. Biodegradable straws and plastics will disintegrate no matter whether they're in a landfill or not. And so, so that became then the goal, to eliminate and reduce plastic straws and have an alternative product available only on request in our restaurants. Just a little background, and I think you all know this and you all care about this, but I'm going to state it for the record. I think it's important that we understand that plastic straws are among the top contributors to the plastic marine toxic debris. Over 7.5 million plastic straws have been picked up in a very specific effort on the coastal communities, shorelines, in a 5-year period, as reported by Ocean Conservancy. That's not to report the ones that go out to sea, which are many times the million more. Recycling machines are not capable of recycling plastic straws. In fact, it messes up the works. It gums up the works. Only 9% of all plastic products in the United States are recycled. And that's been a steady level since 2012, as reported by the EPA. Only 9%. Half of all plastics produced are for single use. In other words, half of all plastics produced are produced to be a throwaway product almost immediately. Almost 9 million tons of plastic pollution flows into our oceans every year. That's reported by the American Association for the Advancement of Science. There's a lot of research, a lot of well-documented statistics out there that that show how dire this situation is. Plastics are now found in every marine habitat on Earth, from the polar ice caps to the very deepest trenches of all of our oceans. Plastics do not biodegrade, but they break down into very small pieces of microplastic, and then they stay in the environment. In other words, in all of our habitats. Our ocean habitat, our 3 freshwater lakes that we care so much about in our community, our groundwater, and our food supply all have these microplastic bits in them. Research shows that we can reduce the amount of plastic straws being used if we have an alternative product on request by 70 to 80%. 70 to 80%. And while the alternative products right now cost more, if you're reducing the overall use by 70, 80%, you can be reducing the overall cost of the product to the businesses. So let me just say before I move this along to Stuart, 2 more things. One is that I started out by saying there's a myriad of communities who have done this and who are currently doing this. Montgomery County, Maryland, that has a larger population than the entire state of Delaware, has agreed to ban plastic straws by 2022. They're banned in the city of Washington, D.C. Our northern national neighbor, Canada, will ban all single-use plastic by the end of this calendar year. The entire European Union has banned almost all single-use plastic products across all of those countries. Some big chains, retail chains such as Starbucks, have officially abandoned plastic straws in use in favor of other kinds of sippy cups. So I could go on and on. We have several businesses in our downtown that have voluntarily taken this on and have been very successful. I could point to several, but a great spokesperson is Bob at the coffee mill. He has done this for years, and he can tell you how well it works. And he serves hundreds of drinks daily and weekly. So before I turn it over to Stuart Martins to make some additional comments, what do we want from you? Ideally, what I'd like from you is a sense today of a direction that you would like the Environment Committee to go. The Environment Committee is ready to just move this ahead. But like I keep telling very passionate environmental people, is that this becomes win-win when we're all going in more or less a similar direction. And that's why we've worked with Carol recently at the Chamber, and she will be able to speak in a while to do a survey of businesses so we could get some data there that can help inform this this process. And so that's what, you, at kind of the end of the day, the end of this discussion, I'd like a sense from the commissioners and mayor back to the Environment Committee as to a direction to go with this, so that when we bring something back, there's some amount of consensus around it. So with that said, Stuart, are you there?
I am.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to you for a few minutes, Stuart, to make additional comments as a local citizen and a committee member.
Thank you, Dick. I couldn't have said it any better than you did with you laying it out. And I think everybody has seen so many articles. We don't need to do that anymore. But I would like to thank the committee we've been working on this for now over a year. And I'd also like to thank Carol and Emily at the Chamber for working so efficiently and quickly with us to get the survey out and get it back in a very timely manner. So Carol, thank you, and Emily incredibly. The issue here is obviously, I think everybody knows, plastic needs to be eliminated. So what is the thing stopping us? And I believe a big component of it is education. One example I have comes from our wonderful mayor himself. Mayor Mills, you sent the committee on January 31st of last year a tabletop placard from Lito's Pizza in Ocean City, Maryland, from Save Our Ocean, saying that biodegradable straws available on request only. So we thank you for your contribution as well. A perfect example of what...
So you're revealing that I go and patronize businesses out of town. Thank you.
I profusely apologize, but I'm sure you were down there on business soliciting help on something for us.
We figured.
By the way, I have your
mayor.
By the way, I have your report to share if you want to go that direction.
Yeah, but yes, I would. But before I do that, a perfect example of what's going on right now under our nose. Delaware, as we all know, started on January 1st to ban plastic bags in the large box stores. And unfortunately, many of us have gone into stores where the bags are being banned, and our poor grocery store cashiers at Fresh Market, Giant, and other stores have been left with no help, no training, no education, to be verbally abused by customers saying, "Where are my plastic bags? Where are the handles on my bags? Why are you doing this?" So the state lost the entire ability to educate the public on this. The big deal is not the few people that live here in Rehoboth, 1,500. The bigger deal, as Carol has educated me, is the 800,000 to 1 million people that are going to come in here on an annual basis from either otherwhere in the state or out of state. If the paper bags have had an educational component to them of charging 15 or 25 cents a bag, and we taught people to bring their own bags in the store, not only would we not have plastic bags, we also wouldn't have many paper bags. Paper is better than plastic, but it is not, as Dick has pointed out, it is not that much better than plastic. So, and to give you just one piece of thing, the Royal Farms just outside our town, within a mile outside our town, gives out 8,000 to 10,000 plastic bags before the ban came in a week. That's one store, and they gave that many out per week. So what would be the thing if we were to eliminate them and teach people how to bring in their own bags and how to be for most of the time? And a perfect example is the paper bag law. Another example that probably many of us are old enough to do is the seatbelt law. I happened to be a car dealer during the time when seatbelts were introduced into the auto industry. When seatbelts were mandated to be put in cars, nobody used them. When they were said you're going to get fined for it, they started to use them. When they started to give you points on your record as well as stiffer fines, now we have 98% of the population using seatbelts. So there's the background, and we would, as Dick said, we would love to see what you all what direction you'd like us to go in, because we wanted to go way further, but due to the pandemic and Carol stressing, we need to be compassionate towards our businesses to hope that we can help them survive. We'd like some direction. That's why we chose the plastic straw issue as its own issue to begin with. And that's, thank you.
Mayor, it may make sense to hear from Carol in terms of the survey that they recently did, as they reached out to 62 of our in-city restaurants. Does that make sense?
Sure. Well, let's go to all our, well, yeah, let's start with her. Carol, are you available?
I am. Let me start with, we only have 7 questions. And, there's a little over 100 eateries, whether they're counter service or inside service, or some of them have both inside and outside counters. So we started with, what is your, what kind of service do you have? 79% were sit down, 29% inside, 16% outside. Those numbers won't come out to the equalization number because some have both. Some have an outside counter, inside dining, and outside counter. Do you currently provide straws? Nearly 80% said yes. Now, let me tell you that typically you send out a questionnaire to 100 people, you're going to get a 20-25% response. That's exactly what we got. We got 24 answers back from the just about 100 that we sent out. 80% yes, they provide straws. How many of you do it only upon request? 25%. And no was less than 5%. Type of straw. Was it plastic? Was it biodegradable? What were you using? 70% said plastic. 30% said biodegradable. And 9% said other, paper, that type of thing. Manufacturer. Does the manufacturer produce an alternative straw that you need for your product? I got an education on this. 59% said yes. 40% said no. So for certain products, they don't even produce a straw that would work. I think those are the ones with the little scoop on the end, something that goes in a dome-covered cup that goes down into the cup. Would banning plastic straws be cost prohibitive? 60% said yes. How long would current inventory last if plastic straws were banned? 27% said 6 months or less. 36% said 6 months to a year. And then it got less after that. There was 27% that not applicable. We don't use plastic straws. And the last question was, if banned, what time frame to implement would be needed? And we gave them a choice. Basically, 6 months from now, July of 2021, 31% said that would work. January 2022, 18% said that would work. And July of 2022, so a full year and a half from now, 50% said that that would be their best alternative. And I don't know if you want me to wait for further comment or give you my thoughts right now. What would you like, Mayor?
Carol, let's go ahead and give all your thoughts if you would, and then we'll go back to the commissioners, and then we'll go back, then we'll go out to the public. So you go ahead and finish your feedback, please.
Okay, so that was the basic statistical feedback. What I want to say is there's no one that doesn't believe plastic is a problem worldwide. It is a problem worldwide. And our own chamber, we use clean, safe, friendly all the time, and that is certainly part of it. What the chamber is hopeful of, and I know that the business community would be hopeful, is that based on these survey results and the comments that we received, that list of comments was critical to me. It would be wonderful if the commissioners would consider, if they make a decision to ban, that they move forward with something that's voluntary before we do something mandatory. In other words, we're asking you to voluntarily reduce or eliminate the use of plastic straws. We'd have to work to find out how that's working. and offer some kind of reward. And that reward could be something as, the green force, or getting some kind of symbol on their exterior of their facade that says they are a member of the Green Force, they practice environmental good practices. And I just want to make sure that from everything that I've read in these surveys, especially the comments, I think that would be well received, and I think you'd get support.
Very good. Thank you, Carol. We're going to go back to the commissioners. I would like to reiterate, since we didn't put the report online, it is embedded in the agenda, just a reminder that the recommendations were twofold. One was the elimination of plastic straw use in establishments currently using plastic straws. And number two, recommendation for the Environment Committee is that all those such establishments that use plastic straws display educational table placards to reduce the use of straws. With that, we'll go to Commissioner Gay.
I have a number of comments I'd like to make later, but I want to ask a question at the start, and that is that what do we as commissioners need to do? Are we being asked to start working on an ordinance, or are we looking at a resolution? I mean, what is our role here? That's the first question. I'll come back to me later.
Well, I think Commissioner Byrne is asking for feedback, on this. Part of me is hesitant to give too much feedback, and that I'd like to hear more from some of the restaurateurs. However, maybe the survey suffices. Thank you. I'll share my opinions in a little bit, but anything else, Susan?
I just wanted to ask that as an overarching question, but I do have other comments I'll come back to in a minute.
I would say go ahead with your comments.
Really? You want me to? Because I got a lot of them.
That's all right.
And everything. And part of the reason is that I've been following this for probably about a year and a half too, because initially RBHA and Solar 3 came to me with wanting to, work with the city to sponsor a plastics ban before the pandemic. So it's an issue that's sort of very, very near and dear to me, and I know it has been to the Environment Committee. I will say at the start, I think it's a laudable goal. I appreciate it, the Environment Committee coming forward with it. It's obviously a significant problem, but there are a number of issues and actually some questions, and I've got some other data I just want to bring to bear on it. First of all, I'm not sure it's the right time to burden our businesses with it, not only given the survey results that the chamber has gotten, but just the fact that Delaware lost 66% of its food and beverage jobs during parts of 2020, and $700 million in loss. It creates a burden if we take action, and that's why I asked what our action would be. But if we took a definitive action, not just a voluntary action, we would be creating a burden for our businesses that is not shared by businesses outside of town. And I don't like creating. I'm hesitant to create something that's a problem for our struggling businesses. But also, just in terms of the scope of the problem locally. We can't control the number of plastic straws brought in, either from those businesses outside of town that don't have a restriction, if we were to go that route, or people bringing them home or buying them in stores. Because with only 1,400 full-time residents, most people are from elsewhere, and I understand that that's part of the education issue that Stuart talked about, and it's the reason that people going into our grocery stores don't know what's going on, because they come from elsewhere. But it also means we can't control the problem as easily as maybe we think we can. I think probably ultimately it might require more action at the state level to be truly effective. And that's obviously what's happened with the plastic bag ban. And my understanding is that they're going to, it was supposed to evolve this year, but again, because of COVID, I think they've put it off, that ban is going to evolve to include smaller stores, or to permit municipalities to do their own plastic bag bans, which actually currently they can't do unless you're over 50,000 population. But, you know, as states have passed these plastic straw bans, as someone noted, they are upon request. They're not an outright ban. They're, you know, you can request a straw. Many of them, I will say, have also excluded fast food restaurants. So again, you're not dealing with the entire universe there. You're excluding some. There've been some concern expressed by disability advocates who feel like it places an undue burden on the disabled to request a straw, as some of the disabilities would not be apparent, and so they're having to explain themselves to a waiter. I have arthritis. I can't lift the cup. I need a straw. Disability advocates have expressed very concerned about that. But I will say that I think plastics as a whole, beyond straws, is a very, very serious issue. And I attended a webinar a few weeks ago specifically about plastic packaging, which, if anything, has increased during the pandemic. And it's very scary. 70% more plastic will be going into our oceans by 2025. That's 4 years from now. And plastic production is set to quadruple by 2050. But there's a little bit of good news on the plastic straw on the local front, in that every year DNREC sponsors the coastal cleanup, and the data from 2019 actually showed that the number of straws picked up was 2,400. This is statewide, 2,400 straws, down from 2,700 the previous year. So that's probably from people like Todd at the coffee mill efforts and other businesses to reduce. And so it's working. It may be a reduction, but it's working. Meanwhile, plastic bags were at 2,200, up from 1,900. So there's some voluntary effort going in on the straw side. So I guess, going back to the original question I proposed, what is our role and what do we want to do? There have been two other times in the last few years that the commissioners have chosen to pass a resolution to state what our preference is and what our goal is and what we support, without passing an outright ordinance. And that is in 2015, when we passed the resolution to be an idle-free city, obviously another very important environmental concern. And in 2016, when we opposed seismic testing and offshore drilling. And those were, the resolution for idle-free basically said to promote the elimination or reduction through education of the city's residents, visitors, and those conducting business in the city. And I guess I wonder if that would be, since education is a key part of this, if we're really looking at passing a resolution to promote that education. And then the Environment Committee could perhaps work with Main Street or the Chamber or SOLA to get that message out. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Well, since they're asking for feedback, I'm very interested in the education component and the voluntary program. I would suggest that they develop an education program and develop the placards. Maybe the city would be able to contribute some to that. On a voluntary basis, I think could work. And with a focus on reanalysis and possible implementation for the summer of 22, but following Carol's lead, I guess, to do it on a voluntary basis and then analyze it over the next year, I think might be worthwhile. But I'd like to get additional feedback from you all. Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, thank you. I agree. This is a problem facing not only our municipality, but the entire world with regards to the overuse of plastics. But looking at this, it seems to be certainly an aspirational goal from us to ask for volunteer participation. And I question the fact that if it's a volunteer basis, would the restaurant then have to carry two types of straws? The plastic, which are cheaper and probably they have in stock for 3, 6, 9, 10, 12 months, and a second stock of paper straws or some compostable straws of that nature. And I noticed in one of the specific comments that was inserted in the aspect here of the survey, one of the comments is, we tried to go 100% paper straws as a company and found that the suppliers could not meet the demand. So
there are other aspects that follow into this. And then also it comes back to the aspect of enforcement in my mind of how do you really enforce this if it goes beyond aspirational goals. And the measurement of success. As we mentioned, we are a very transitory community with people coming in, renters coming in, grocery stores that supply plastic straws all around us, but no grocery stores really in full grocery stores in the city. So there's a lot that falls into this formula to be successful. And I'd be curious to know if the state in their aspects of banning plastic bags also we're also looking at plastic straws and decided against that, or if they have a step-by-step process to address that issue also, because I think educationally and a larger geographic commitment to the banning of plastic straws certainly would be more effective than just our 1 mile square, 1,400 people. So again, I aspirational goals are good, but sometimes they just lead to more complications than they do if we were to out and out, ban plastic straws in the city of Rehoboth Beach by 2025. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Calusi? Unmute yourself.
Yes, Commissioner Gay and you, Mayor, covered a lot of the things that I was concerned about, but I do think that what Carol Everhart was promoting, or what she was, the results essentially of her survey, was something that is going to have to lead up to, we need to think short-term and long-term, in my opinion. So perhaps, being a part of the Green Force and getting that sticker and having people voluntarily or residents voluntarily eliminate plastic straws. And then maybe, in 6 months or 9 months or however we want to schedule this, we start to make it a little bit more firmer in terms of people requiring the plastic straws to be eliminated. So I think we need to look at this short-term and long-term. And I think if we look at it and put something in place that addresses both, then it gives the restaurants some notice of where we're going and gives them time to adjust. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Srnowski?
Thank you. I agree with Commissioner Gay and Calusi. I'm not sure that now is the right time for our businesses. And I think by looking at the short term and long term, we can plan, we can put businesses on notice of what's coming into the future and steps we may take down the road. But I think just education will go a long way in the very beginning. And I'd like to see us take that step before a full-blown banning. I mean, just educating restaurants on reducing how many straws are thrown out just by not automatically putting a straw in each glass. Let the individual ask for a straw if they want one. A lot of people don't need to drink out of a straw. That alone would would save the business money and and reduce the footprint of how many straws are being passed. So those are my thoughts on how we move forward, Commissioner Byrne.
Thank you. Again, I want to reiterate that I think a voluntary education program could benefit. I'm frustrated because the last time I ate in some restaurants, it's been a while ago, admittedly. I do more takeout than anything right now. But last time we ate in restaurants, several restaurants in the incorporated limits of Rehoboth Beach, they automatically brought straws in with our drinks. And I think that the one thing they should do is to ask people. So I think that's a good program. And I think that by education, maybe we can eliminate the overkill in doing that. Now, I'm also mindful that straws in restaurants generally end up in the trash. They don't end up in the recycle bin. They end up in the trash can, and they're usually disposed of in a landfill. Where the bigger problem in my mind comes is from the carryout facilities that have it. Milkshakes that you carry around and sodas that you carry around with you. One thought is we'll make those disposable, and yet we got feedback from a owner that says disposable straws or compostable straws do not work for milkshakes. So that's a problem. But again, education, I think, regardless of where we go, is a next first step. Commissioner Legree? Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
I need a new first name. I grew up with paper straws and had a lot of milkshakes. I mean, not too sure. Now, I didn't carry them around very long. I mean, they didn't stay in the cup too long. But yeah, I think I agree with which way we're headed. I will get really involved with this conversation when we start talking about styrofoam. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. So I'm not sure that we really have a direction. Commissioner Byrne, can you distill what you heard?
Well, yeah, first, thank you for all of the discussion. The feedback has been helpful. It is good. It's good to hear. Thank you, Mayor, for giving this as much time on the agenda today as you have. It's greatly appreciated. The Environment Committee meets later this week, and we will, I think Charlie is out there listening. I hope Charlie Garlow and Stuart and I here will work at making meaning of all of this and look at next steps. It's important to keep in mind that hundreds of other communities, large and small, have done this successfully, and it's working out. I think several of you, all of you, have raised some good questions about kind of the what ifs and the concerns, and the realistic, because we are kind of an island unto ourselves here. On the other hand, I think we can, as a community, adopt best practices, model best practices, showcase things that are good, and help others learn how best to do them. I'd love to have the state moving quickly in this direction, but maybe some communities have to first to kind of trigger it in the state. I think it's realistic that we are with the serious downturn of the economy for our restaurants. We have to be very cognizant of that and very sensitive to that. And that's what this committee has been doing, and that's why we've worked closely with the chamber to reach out in terms of the survey. Surveys are interesting, and particularly one like this that's not scientific. We're getting kind of real quick attitudes and feelings, and that not to diminish those, because I think it can give us some direction, but it is only a marker in time. One of the nice things that surveys can do is that they are informative and educational at the same time as collecting data. And so, when we say we want to kind of start bringing the businesses along and helping them look toward, what is going to be the future, surveys do that, because all of a sudden you're filling out a survey and you think, oh, well, this is real. People are thinking about this. The city commissioners are thinking about this. So that causes folks to become more informed. I think education is the next first step. Voluntary programs, I think, can be very, very, very workable. And then I think the committee just needs to kind of, do some more thinking on it. Stuart, if you're still there, do you have some thoughts before the mayor moves the agenda?
Well, to finish, Dick, just to that, yes, the education, as we've been proposing all along, is probably least talked about, but is the most important part. Because if there's a placard on every table, then all of a sudden your customers start to be the educators to even the servers. And kids will be the educators to their parents. They'll tell your parents, don't take that straw, daddy, you're hurting the marine life. So the education component is critical. The education component hasn't been talked about yet, is also educating the business owners to train their servers not to give a straw out and to monitor that process and to educate them why. So it needs to be a workshop for the business owners. I heard a number of you address the cost. Cost is exactly why we pick straws instead of picking the styrofoam and the clamshells and everything, which we really wanted to do, out of consideration for the business owners. If somebody puts placards out and educates and starts putting out 80% less straws, even if the straw is 3 cents or 4 cents compared to 1 cent for a plastic straw, which is, by the way, the cost, they are saving money. Their costs go down, their revenues, actually their bottom line net profit improves. Yes, not a lot, but a tiny bit. And if they are serving soda in a bag, by the way, the soda actually only costs 3 cents if they're doing it in soda in a bag. And I don't know if they're doing that. So we were very sensitive to the business owners, but at the same time, we've got to start doing something now. And yes, if we start doing it, can we get then Dewey and Lewis and Bethany, and then hopefully Sussex County and the state to do it. So that was how we are hoping to proceed.
Thanks, Stuart. And Mayor, let me just conclude by saying what I think is the obvious, and that is that it's not enough to wring our hands and worry about it and throw out all the data and say, woe is us, and it's really bad, and let somebody else do it. It can also be time for the city of Rehoboth Beach to be bold, to do this in ways that make good sense and that can be win-win for everyone, including, and most importantly, I think, our environment. So thank you all for all of this.
Thank you, Commissioner. We've got 3 other commissioners that want to speak, and then after them, I'd like to go to the public. Commissioner Gossett, Gay, and Calusi.
Yes, thank you. I'm just talking about the educational aspect of it. If memory serves me correctly, about 3 or 4 years ago, Commissioner Sharp had a great presentation made to the mayor and commissioners from the science class at Rehoboth Elementary School. And they had an incredible program that they had put together with sample table placards and a really strong educational program. And I don't know if I know we did not take action at that time, but it certainly was an incredible program that they presented and very enthusiastic, not only from Rehoboth, but all of the elementary schools in the Cape Henlopen district. And one of the things that struck me about that presentation was that many of those children in that program, their parents worked in the hospitality industry. And so you're educating from 2 sides, if you will, not only the consumer product, but as someone mentioned earlier, the server. And if your son or daughter is questioning your parents about the work ethics, if you will, of plastic versus paper in their restaurants, that certainly has a greater impact if the restaurants are getting it from 2 sides. So I would suggest that the environmental committee go back and talk with the science teacher at Rehoboth Elementary and see if that program is still in place or what happened to it, because again, it was ready to hit the road from their standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gay.
Yeah, I think since so much of the focus now is on education, and I appreciate what Commissioner Burns said about what we could do for modeling, the appropriate behaviors from the community, that, maybe we shouldn't limit it at this point to just to plastic straws. And I guess I would encourage the committee to, if you're going to undertake an education mission, to look beyond straws to other types of plastics as well, because we can't We are restricted by the state from doing any other kind of plastic ban for now. But if education is going to be the key to the change, then, I would hope you would expand your horizons toward your original goals.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Calusi?
Yes, thank you. I agree with you, Commissioner Gay, about going beyond just plastic straws, but I do believe we have the opportunity to jumpstart this right now. And the way I think we should do it is I think that the city can basically fund the placards with guidance from the Environment Committee, and those can be distributed to the businesses. That way we're not relying on each business to come up with their own placard, and it's just sort of showing how the city is wanting to move forward with this. And it seems to me that we could very inexpensively, have placards printed up that could be distributed to restaurants saying essentially that they would have to ask for a straw. A little jump start like that might be really helpful and very educational. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Legree, and then we'll go to the public.
I remember the presentation that Commissioner Gossett is talking about. That was very powerful. Those kids, it's a very powerful presentation on plastic straws. And yeah, we need to see it again. And I also agree with Commissioner Gay that we should keep the goal in mind that one of these times we need to expand. Styrofoam was the most horrible substance known, and we just use way too much of it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to go to the public. Carol Everhart, I'll start with you again. Do you have anything to add, please?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I agree with the education very much so. And I think working with the school and possibly MER, that there's an opportunity there to also get this out on a social media type of thing. And we'd be more than happy to assist with that. And I'm very thankful that you consider it being voluntary.
Thank you, Carol. Say that again.
I'd love to be carrying a flag that says Rehoboth first in line with environmental changes voluntarily. I would love to carry that banner.
We'll make it and size it for you. Thank you. Mr. Brittingham?
Oh, I really do hate to comment, but first of all, we're going to have more money in the budget for the police, for the straw police to go out there. We're going to have table placards running up and down the street for all the outside restaurants, and I think we need to back off a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Mr. Perry?
I agree with the educational aspects, and I think that is something that could be done almost immediately to begin that process. It's very important to have such an effective educational program in place. I also wonder, as a seaside community, I believe that we have a very special obligation to our oceans, and plastics kill our marine life, and it's harmful to our food supply as well. And so I would recommend that you give some thought to adding a little message to the information boards along the boardwalk that has information about the beach and the dunes and things of that nature, to just say, please do not throw any plastics into the ocean or leave them on the beach. And maybe do the same thing, maybe a little notice on our trash cans along the boardwalk, just as part of the educational process. I would be in favor of a phase-in to eliminate plastic straws. I do realize the businesses have been hard hit, but I think if they know that it's coming, they'll start stocking up on compostable straws for the future when they know that it will be put in place. And I suspect that one of the reasons why suppliers may be unable to fulfill orders at this point in time is that it's a supply and demand issue. There probably just isn't enough supply at this point to meet the demand, which is hopefully going in this direction. But as more and more businesses, more and more restaurants move away from the plastic straws, I'm sure the supply will be there and the cost will probably even come down at that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferry. With that, Commissioner Byrne, I think you can glean your marching orders from everything that's been said today. We thank you, and please thank the Environment Committee for all their efforts on this and continuing efforts to advance this. Very much appreciated. With that, we'll go on to the next topic, which is discuss a resolution authorizing the city manager, mayor, and vice president to conduct financial transactions with Bright House Financials. We have a resolution to adopt in front of us. Obviously, today is an introductory discussion, and if in agreement, we would put this on the agenda for February 19th for a vote. Sharon, do you want to have somebody explain the intent of this? Please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is merely, I'll call it a housekeeping issue in that the city doesn't lose out on 222 shares, value of approximately $8,400 that would normally go back to the state if the city doesn't declare this and name officers authorized to conduct the financial transactions for the city to retrieve these funds. The city's been a longtime member of for city employees who wish to participate in a retirement plan. It went from Mass Mutual to Bright House Financial. CompuShare, yeah. And this is just an administrative action so the city can retrieve that $8,400. I'll turn it over to Mr. Mandalis.
That's a perfect description. That's exactly what it is. This resolution that's before you. Settled a resolution by the Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach authorizing the mayor, vice president, and city manager to conduct financial transactions as account signers on Bright House Financial Inc. account C0004480899. So you need to authorize the signer, commissioners, to be able to say, yes, we want to retain the 222 shares, rather than them escheating.
Thank you, Glenn. And as this is embedded in the agenda, I don't think we need to read it further. We'll again address this February 19th. Consider it. Are there any questions by the commissioners? If not, I'm going to defer on public comment to the next topic, and they can make multiple comments just to save a little time. With that, we'll go to the next item of business is discuss nomination for membership on the Parks and Shade Tree Commission. As you know, we had the chair resign recently, and I will be nominating Bunky Markert for filling the vacant membership seat as well as becoming chair. I intend to have Glenn conduct a training session for the Parks and Shade Tree Commission. We've got 2 new members on there, and with Bunky, that'll be 3. I think it's a good time to reset and start from scratch again with a review of the code and what their mission is. So again, I would intend to put Bunky Markert on as chair of the Parks and Shade Tree Commission, and we would vote on that at our February 19th meeting. Are there any questions? Thank you very much. And again, I'll get to the public after this next topic. You can talk about any of the 3 things that we just talked about. Next item of business is update on Lake Avenue Streetscape Phase 2 project. If you recall, Lake Avenue Streetscape Phase 1 was Lake Avenue from Rehoboth Avenue to 3rd Street. And now Lake Avenue Phase 2 incorporates the area from the triangle at 3rd Maryland and Olive and North 2nd Street. Kevin, do you want to share a little update? How's it going?
Thank you, Mayor. The contractor's moving along very well on the project. Was held up a little bit last couple of weeks with some bad weather, both cold and rain. But progress is going well. We still anticipate being able to finish by its completion date toward the end of April. You recall not too long ago, we presented the work that was ongoing on 2nd Street. You kind of see some of that here. And then the next picture should show kind of what it looks like now. We put 2nd Street semi into service, so he's got the base course down as he moves on to Maryland and Olive Streets. So trucks can get into the post office should they need to, or they can escape Baltimore Avenue if they need to. But it's base course down. They'll come back, in the spring when it warms up to do the surface coat. There's another shot of that. And they're moved on to Maryland. You can see they've got the surface coat down, or I'm sorry, the base course now down on this section of the triangle area in front of the hotel. And currently they are over on Olive from about, 3rd Street all the way back to a little bit past the, 2nd Street, back to the corner, just past the corner of 2nd Street where it intersects. Like I said, the contractor's doing well. It should be finished, like I said, toward the end of April.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners?
Yes, I have one. This is Commissioner Gossett. The intersection there where Bad Hair Day is, if you're coming down Maryland or Olive, I guess it is, and coming into the multi-intersection there, previously there'd never been a stop sign. Is there scheduled to be a stop sign put at that location?
Yes, there is.
And that will all stop always in that regards then?
Well, that's a one-way section coming down Olive.
Right.
So we'll just before that, but you'll still have the stop sign on 3rd. You'll still have the stop sign, on Lake.
Okay.
As you come there. And the stop sign coming out of that convention center parking lot.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coluzzi?
Yes, it appears that there is going to be a new sidewalk on the north side of Olive going around to 3rd. And I don't know how the crosswalk's supposed to work from, I guess, Olive to the north or south side of Maryland. That's something I'd like to hear where that's going to be. And the other thing is, I noticed with the where they're digging up for the new sidewalk, that there's been some, bricks, some problems with the Garden of the Navigators. Some of the bricks have been, cracked and loosened and so forth. I assume that's all going to be taken care of by this current contractor. If you could address those two things, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, Commissioner. I'm not aware of the bricks you're talking about. If it's up by the Garden of the Navigators, because they haven't really been up in there. They've been along the sidewalk. Now, we're talking about something other than kind of the colored bricks up by the garden itself or the pavilion itself.
It's pavers, essentially. It's pavers.
Soldier course along the edge. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's pavers along where they dug up the sidewalk. Some of them are missing and some of them are broken. Those are the ones.
No, correct. Those will get replaced.
Where the new sidewalk kind of took apart some of your pavers into the Sister Cities Garden, that would all be restored, absolutely.
And then the crosswalks, if you're talking there kind of at the intersection by Bad Hair Day, you'll see the island was extended out toward the intersection, and there's an accessible crosswalk that runs from that landing over by the gardens across to the kind of the safe area, in the median and then on across to the corner by the hotel. And there's a new ramp been constructed there and a new platform with a bench and those kind of things be on that landing. Farther up at 2nd Street, there's another new accessible ramp that's being constructed that'll go from the Lake Gerard side across to the corner by the condos.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to the public. You've got the opportunity to speak on Bright House Financial, Parks and Shade Tree Commission nomination, and Lake Avenue Streetscape Phase 2, if you like. Carol Everhart?
No comment, Mayor.
Thank you, Carol. Walter Brittingham?
Thank you. Lake Avenue Streetscape. We have repeatedly contacted the chief of police and have been put off because it's been referred to Kevin and to Evan. The signage coming off of 1st Street is terrible. It's inadequate. We are a year-round community anymore, and it needs to be fixed. Do we expect it to be fixed? It's not, but you can get down streets and have no way to turn around. Bitsy has also made comments about some of the things that are going there. Nothing gets done. Now, we recognize this is a City of Rehoboth project when they want it to be, or a State of Delaware when they want it to be, because they put money in. But so why do we complain to safety at the state about it? Because they're not going to do anything, much less that the City of Rehoboth is not going to do anything about appealing to the city commissioners about the signs. But the signs need to be fixed. Olive Avenue should be local traffic only. The signs say 2nd Street is open. It's open is a joke. You can come off of Rehoboth Avenue at the post office and make a right and go up and down the street. It's marked street closed, local traffic only. That's the way it ought to be. But the city needs to do a better job and think about the people that are coming here. And those of us that are here don't know from one day or another what it is. And in most cases, several times I've called into dispatch and they don't know about it either. And it needs to be fixed and you need to do a better job. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Mr. Perry?
First on the Lake Avenue project, maybe I missed this somewhere along the line, but can someone explain why the opening from Lake Ave onto Maryland heading east is about the width of a parking space? I already noticed a number of vehicles must have hit the curbing that projects out from the sidewalk along the hotel. It seemed like an odd width to me. I'm even wondering if fire trucks, for example, get through there easily enough.
Sure. So this is Kevin Williams. Yeah, the design of that whole intersection was obviously the primary intent was to make it safer, for pedestrians. Had that huge intersection. There was an uncontrolled intersection in some regards, and we felt obviously it was not safe. So obviously that in order to slow folks down there, one way is to make it a little more constricting, so it's a little tighter for them to navigate through there. It is a 12-foot lane, which is the standard design length. Width lane for an interstate highway. So it does appear smaller than it did before, but it's smaller intentionally. And we still feel that 12-foot lane there should be more than adequate. Most in-town lanes, with the design width of those is about 10 feet.
Thank you, Kevin. Anything else, Rick?
I was just wondering in terms of the appointment to the of Bunkie, were there other applicants also who applied for positions on the commission?
Yes, yes, there were.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Stuart Martins? He dropped off, Frank and Kathy. Very good. Thank you all. If there's no other commissioner comments on that, we will go to number 11, commissioner announcements and comments. I would like to make note that we were intending to have 3 public hearings scheduled for February 19th. One for ground floor area number 1, one for ground floor area number 2 that included underground parking, and a third public hearing for wireless communications amendments. Unfortunately, the hearings were not advertised, just in error. And at the pleasure of the commissioners, if you want, we can re-vote on it. Otherwise, I would hope you just allow me to work with Ann on publishing it, and we pick the next closest date that we can get this on the agenda. Feedback, please. All righty, we'll go that route. Thank you very much. Any other commissioner comments or announcements before we move on? If not, then we'll move on. Review future meeting dates. We have a special meeting already. Agenda is posted for February 12th. That is this Friday. The primary topic is the Streetscape, Wilmington, Baltimore Streetscape Task Force, as noted earlier, as well as continued or additional discussion on committee policies, if you will. Beyond that, I'm not intending to have a special meeting on the 16th. We would probably have our next special meeting on the 22nd, and I will firm that up by this Friday. So please keep 22nd and Tuesday open at 2
Mayor,
or 3 o'clock.
Excuse me, do you mean the 23rd?
23rd, which is that a Tuesday?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's no other comment, we've had citizen comment. With that, I want to thank you all. Thank the members of the public that participated today. Don't forget we have a budget meeting starting at 1:30. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting today at 11:55 a.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.